continuing on with the assembly of the Seagulls Model Special Edition 87-inch Corsair. Available from Gator-Rc. As always, link down in the description below. Let's get into it. So check out this sweetness from RightRc, link down in the description below. This airplane stand is pimp. So some of the really cool features about this is I can slide this whole thing. See that trolley system right there? That whole thing can slide back and forth to adjust up here accordingly as you need to. You have release pins here, so that way you can fold this thing up. You can go ahead and pull that thing out, and then this whole leg can fold up, so you can transport this thing around. And you have height adjustments, so you can loosen this up here and slide this thing up and down, so you can tilt this thing. But what I like is I can keep it right over next to my workbench, and it's nicer than coming up over the top to work on things. It can be right here at the edge. I could slide it out of the way, get back into working on the wing, come back out here to work on the fuselage, or put them together. So benches are great, but they have their limitations. Airplane stands like this are super pimp and highly encouraged. Get yourself one today. RightRc, link down in the description below. All right, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to get the stabs set in, the horizontals. So we're going to make sure that, again, using our RightRc stand, it's really nice because we can lift each end of the plane. We want to make sure that we're level this way and this way. And then I dry fit back here. We mount our laser and we make sure that we're happy with the way that that laser shoots across the back. So we're kind of right in the middle here, right at the lower edge there. You're probably within a 1/16 of an inch. I can't fix that enough to make it worth the work. That's pretty close in my book. So, or that's perfect in my book. I'm good with it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take everything off that we know that this is put in there. And again, the reason we do this is that zero up there was like this, and we caught it and fixed it, and we have a really good flying plane because of it. We're going to do the same with this. So it's a very short, easy check to make sure that this thing's going to fly right in the air. So let's go ahead, pull this off, and then we're going to epoxy everything into place. Also, one of the things that they note in the book is to measure the distance between where the wing is going to sit and those horizontals and make sure that they are the same distance. Again, lasers would be your best friend, but I look at it this way. I'm going to set the stab to the fuse, and once this thing's all like an arrow and we mount that wing, if that wing is off a little bit, that thing's in the saddle, not here. So then we can fix the saddle of the wing in order to get those measurements the same. The other thing that's worth noting is to make sure that you have these slid in all the way, and you want to just check your spacing between there and there and make sure it's the same, or it would be the spacing from here. I like to go to corners. I don't like to go to the ends, but usually corners are a lot easier to build off of and make measurements. So that's, I like measure there to there, there to there, but we want to make sure that we go all the way in. So as far as epoxying, I like to use some slow cure epoxy. We don't need an absolute ton, but you can put right in here in this part of the fuselage, a little bit around the saddle, and then we're just gonna squeeze it together. So let's get that mixed up. In here, I'm going to use some slow cure epoxy just because I want to be able to check things after it's back together. I don't want this stuff drying on me. I want plenty of working time. So we're just going to give this stuff a nice workaround in there. All right, we're going to check that with the laser, and then we're going to let that set up. And the next thing we're going to start getting ready is we're going to tape off, and we're going to put in the last of our horns while we're here and we got the epoxy out. All right, let's get our horns in. So I put them in there to make sure they look like they're down on the hinge line, and they are. You can shoot that again. I did with a laser, all kinds of stuff, but it's important to make sure the hole's on the hinge line. I tape it off so I have room for my, excuse me, epoxy. And don't forget, people make this mistake, I cover it in every video. I drill 2 small holes, not straight across from each other, but angled, and I rough all that up so it has something to grip into. And in true fashion, I cannot find my rudder horn. I don't know where it went. I don't know if I don't have one. I don't know if I lost it. I don't know if it's somewhere here on my bench and I can't see it, but I got to go digging around for it. So for now, we're just going to do these 2. So let's get this stuff all pushed down on the inside there. You could hear maybe the hooches barking in the background. They don't like me talking on the camera, I guess. They say speed it up, less yip yap. So just work the epoxy down in there again. Slower the better. Depends what your time frame is. But I like to use stuff that takes a while to cure, so that way if you need to move it, you can. And also you have a nice working time where you're not going to be stressed to get those things in there. And then we'll take this, just make sure we have some coated on here all the way around. And we're going to go ahead and place this thing in. And I like some to smush out. Make sure it's down in there all the way. I like to have that edge. I can just use something like a straw. And if you want a nice chamfer to it, it's a neat little trick. If you're looking for clean chamfers. So there's that one. That's all. We're going to let that set up for a couple minutes. I'm going to pull the tape, but let's go ahead and do the other side. All right, so timestamp right here, day after Christmas. I hope all you guys had a very Merry Christmas, enjoyed the time with your families. We're taking a little extra time here off of work, and we're going to work on this Corsair. We left it with gluing in the horizontals, epoxying those in. Everything is done there. The horns are done on the underside. I couldn't find this thing, so one of the things I'm bad at is keeping this area organized while we're working. I got stuff everywhere. So we took a couple hours, cleaned and reorganized, and guess what I found? So it's here. We're going to epoxy this thing in and get this thing set, and then we're off to the inside of the plane. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to get in our elevator and rudder linkage put in. There are 2 equal length rods. Those are obviously your elevator, and then you have the shorter one, which is going to be the rudder. So in order to get them fished through, you can fish them through either way. I'm going to see if I can get them through here because I could see the beginning of the tubes, but you're going to have to spin off all of these clevises and the nuts in order to get them in, because we want the ball link end in here on the servo arms. So let's spin those off. Now we're going to install the rudder. The rudder is actually on the left side of the plane, but it's up high. It's almost hard to see the tube, so we're going to kind of work in the way of the camera. Yay, we're finally back in business. Our pins from Hanson Hobbies has showed up. Christmas is over, New Year's are over, and we're finally back to normal shipments. We are not going to run out for quite a while. So we've loaded up on all of our pins for regular servo leads, and then I also use a lot of what they call their polarized connectors. We stocked up on those as well. And the great thing about these is I'll usually cut off the servo leads and I'll put these on because they actually have these nice little clips. And if you want to ever disconnect anything, just a little tab. And you don't have to use those other things that look like this. They do work, but just a better mousetrap, if you will. But let me show you what's going on the plane. All right, now that we have our pins, we have to work out where the layout's going to go. So I've mounted the wing on the plane for right now. Again, the gear is down. I put in triangle stock, and I put that in the inside just right above the linkage arms. And I made myself a tray, and I put some lightning holes in it. And this is some pretty thick ply, so I'm not worried about vibration or flexing. And this thing will ultimately mount right in there like that. And it looks like an absolute mess, as it always does as we're getting this worked out. But ultimately, we'll figure out our wires. So from here, I believe I'm going to run, as I always do, 2 receivers, which is the benefit of the ArSmoothFlite. These are going to just sit up in the inside, and I'll run a set of antennas forward, and I'll run another set back, and then they're always 90 degrees from each other, like so. The fuel tank, I think what I'm going to end up doing, I would love to keep it in the center, but if I run the batteries that I want to, these are 6,000 milliamp batteries. I also have 3s. When we go to balance it, we'll see which ones we want to use. But I have a feeling I don't have enough room if I center it, and that's okay. We never land on a empty tank anyway, or we don't want to. I'm going to push that over to the side, and I'll mount my batteries right there. So that means that we still need an ignition, BEC, and we need a retract controller and a lighting module to go in this plane somewhere yet. And it's absolutely amazing where those servos are. They kind of ruin everything because you have a little bit of space back there, but you can't access it. And it's right underneath all the linkage and between all the, if you will, RF and servos. I don't like the idea of mounting electronics near that stuff. So like right alongside of it kind of stuff. Anyway, we'll get it worked out. I'll figure out where I want to put it, and then I'll show you guys. But ultimately, that's that. When it comes down to linkage, after you have, again, the ball links are really good quality. Push rods seem to be a very good, durable quality as compared to the ones in my Zero. Those weren't as nice. Anyway, 3/4 length arms, you could probably even get away with 1/2 inch on every single one of those that are down there. So 3/4 just barely rub on the wall, but as they pivot and swing in and out, they clear, and they're not like stuck or binding. They're just fine. So I went with 3/4, and I had to dial them down to about 70% of the throw. So I think that's why if you put in 1/2 inch arms, you'll get a much better articulation throughout the whole movement. Don't forget to tighten up your nuts, and we're going to put on the little clevis keepers, which is just fuel tube. We use our little expanders here, little expanding hemostats. Slide that over. Put our clevis back in. Make sure we click together. Okay, and we slide that back over. There you go. Well, I thought I could cheat and I lost, so let me show you. The rudder, I was just going to use the single arm, and for my tail wheel, I'm using the Gator supplied Retract through this, so JP gear or whatever it is. The Seagull's model gear. You can also use Robarts, and they give you instructions there how to do it, which is nice. But I thought I can use just another small servo back there. I'm not going to be able to make that work. So that arm got to come out for the middle for the rudder, and we got to put in the double tiller arm. So anyway, off to do both of those things. Let's get this thing rolled over. Again, the RightRc stand. Guys, this thing is just so invaluable on this build. I love it. All right, for the tail wheel installation, you have the choice of using, again, Robarts or the standard gear that comes with it. So whether it's JP or Seagull, whatever you want to call it. But we only need the brackets that come in the kit if you're using the Robart stuff, as well as all of these pieces in the instruction manual that go around there. Those are all Robarts, so you don't need any of that. You're going to take this thing like this. The wire is going to get fished into that hole like so. That stuff can just go in there. And you're going to take this thing and you're going to set that into place. We're going to go ahead and use some nicer 440 hardware, a little bit longer than they give you in this kit. And if you want to use lock washers and washers, I'm going to use a lot of blue Loctite on here on the back of this tail wheel. And then you're going to see the wires from the pull for the tail wheel actually will come through and go through this plate into the back. So it's going to take a little bit to fish these through. Also keep in mind, again, 3mm bolts. Even though this bracket is threaded, 3 mils will slide right in. You don't have to drill them out. And then that goes and threads into the plane. Another thing that's a good idea if you want to go ahead and do it is to soak some of this with NCA, which I'm going to do before I bolt mine, just because I want to harden up that wood some more. Okay, so let's get to it. All right, so our gear works. Now we're going to go ahead. There's 2 small holes that you can see right under the bolts. We're going to get that pushed through so we could hook up here and then hook up to our rudder. And up on the rudder end is where we'll leave our little adjusters. That would be these bad boys. So let's get to fishing some wire. All right, our cables are in. I guess if you wanted to, you can run some really long bolts down to here and then have these wrap around those so they're kind of straight. But I've tested them up in, just going up into the holes and looping around, and they work just fine. So what we're going to do here with pull cables, if you don't want pull cables to come loose, I have crimped these things endlessly, and I've learned over the years if you double pass it, and I'll show you what I mean. So put on your squeeze collar this way. All right, we're going to come up and into wherever it is that you want this thing to go. And we're going to leave it a little longer. And then we're going to pass it through again like this. So you have your loop. And now we're going to turn this thing around this way, and we're going to pull it back through the other side. So we're going to make a second loop. All right. You're going to use up a little bit more cable doing this, but they give you more than enough. And you'll see how I made that outside loop? Now what we're going to do is we're going to pull that tight, and we're going to press it against the collar there along the side. So now when you squish it, that thing definitely isn't going anywhere. And I actually use crimping pliers. So we'll bring this thing out. We're going to do 2 crimps there and there, so we're not over crimping it. You really shouldn't use dikes, because dikes will they'll cut through those collars. We will use dikes though to cut off the extra. And depending on how you do your cables, I know I can pull mine out. We're just going to slide on a piece of shrink tube over the top of all that. And now you'll have super clean looking cables, and everything will be buttoned up so they won't pull or stretch or loosen up on you that way. All right, time to do the doors on the back, and there's kind of an example of what we're going to do. So the way that this is going to work is the hinges. So the part that sticks out, the little pin portion that goes through the center, it's going to ride right on the top of the two blocks that are right there. So that thing's going to go that way, and it's going to come back in. You're going to have to notch out the gear door there, and these things are just made out of like a PVC, so they're gonna bend and manipulate as those hinges bend and manipulate. But ultimately this one's gonna sit in there like that. That one's gonna get pulled in. They're not the cleanest looking around here because of the cutout of the wood, but they're good. I mean, it's not bad. You're not going to see anything. Now, what I've opted to do, a couple things. You're going to want to pre-drill those. Don't just put wood screws in there because it's going to crack those plates. And let me show you the screws I'm using. So you don't want those screws to pop out the side of the plane over here. So I'm using some pretty tiny screws to hold those in. And then here, these are just 2mm bolts with nuts. And it's nice because they're smaller than the holes, so you can manipulate the door around a little bit and then tighten them up however you want. If you choose to use washers there, you can. But ultimately, we're going to put the retract up. We're going to put that in, drill it, mark it. We're going to pull the door back off, notch that out. And then we're going to do this side. And then once the doors are mounted, we're going to figure out where we have to put these springs to make all this work. Okay, so time lapse. Now we have to install the springs, so we're going to take out this bolt. We're going to put one spring in that way. We're going to put this through, one on the other side. And I think I want to see if I can get, I don't like regular nuts. If you use something on them, that's fine, but prefer to use a lock nut. So they're 2 mil. All right, now let's hook that up to the rear bolt on the front hinge. All right, so this is installed, but check this out. It binds up on that gear door. Now I got to figure out how we're going to fix this. All right, check it out. Here is our fix versus what the factory did. So we made spring-loaded hinges. I will show you guys how to do that. So they assist to the open position. And instead of a spring, we did a solid cable. Now, if you had about the same length, a little bit more robust springs, that would probably work for you instead of the cable. But I'm not going to run around trying to find stuff, so I will just make a direct pull cable down on the end of this thing. So all right, so the base measurement for that loop, if you will, is 60.54 millimeters, and that would be wrapping that around the ends. Now, I got a set of springs. It seems 3 to 4 on each side would do you. 4 would probably be a great number. I'm using 3 just because I only got 6 of these things, so I got 3 for each side. There's your part number from McMaster-Carr, TML0105012. If you wanted to, you can just use 2 springs and go with the next strongest spring, but as far as diameter, that's about right if you're going to use the hinges that come in this plane. So let me show you how I make the hinges. All right, now to get started, we want the fat part of the hinge away from us. We're going to take our pin, we're going to get that started through there. We're going to take one part of the spring and place it through that hole. We're going to pick up this piece, place it through the other screw hole, and that kind of will get you your holding area for that spring through the hole.
we'll slide the pin through the first little brace. If your spring pops out of there, not a big deal. We just take it and curve it in. Like so. So that's in there. Now we'll take spring number 2 and get that in both them holes. Push the spring into the middle of the joint. Run that pin through it. And then just give it a good squeeze to reseat that pin. There you go. So now we have 2 springs in there loaded for pressure in the open position. Okay, let's get it installed. Now for the more forward hinge, we're only going to install 1 on this. Like I said, if you want, you can install 2, or you can do a little stiffer of a spring in there, but the size is right for the number I gave you. So I'm sure they have a little bit more tension springs, which would definitely be nice back here. But I think we're good with what we got. We're going to put 1 in, and let's get that done. All right, hinges installed there, and here we're going to leave that bolt off until we can make our cables. So let's pop this gear up. All right, so we can take this spring off, and then I'm going to make one of those to go from there to that bolt. All right, here's our finished result. Gear pops up, and we go down. There you go. So I like that. I think that's going to do just fine for us. All right, so we took our arm off. The single pull is not going to work, and then, or the single rudder connection isn't going to work. And then I thought I could do a servo down at the tail wheel for steering. So no. So we're going to use the double tiller arm. I already elongated the hole for the rudder connection. Now what I've done here is we just take the pull adjusters. Always make sure you use a jam nut, otherwise it will damage the threads over time and pull out. So that thing's going to sit like that. We don't need a ton of throw on that tail wheel, so we just take these, slide them over into place, they'll snap, and then we can just use the little silicone keepers, make sure everything stays tight on the tail wheel pull. Get that one into place. And I always run that adjuster through just enough that it starts to stick through. So if I have to loosen them, I still have room. But again, always use jam nuts. So now we're going to go ahead and get these things kind of hooked up. And what we're going to do there is get this run through like that. Loop through that way. And then back. That should hold that one. All right, so those 2 are roughly run. Now we're going to get our bolt for our rudder. And we're going to put that back in. Now that we got the servo powered on, go ahead and center this on there. All right, I got to move the camera to get in here to work, but now we're just going to go ahead and we're going to adjust all the slack out of our pull. When you go to adjust these, make sure that tail wheel is down, and I'm using hemostats up through the bottom so I can grab the cables and pull. Everything's adjusted. Now we're ready to crimp. Next, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get the battery trays installed. I've started using a while ago now ArSmoothFlite smart batteries. I really like them. Mainly for the reason they're easy to charge. I like how they give you a little meter right on the side of them so you know exactly how much charge is left. And they really seem to work well with the telemetry portions of the ArSmoothFlite system. I like how they have the little trays for them. They are easy to install. They are easy to strap batteries in and out. And here you go, guys. We're going to run 2 receivers, 2 2.4s, and a 900 megahertz backup in this plane. Maybe a little bit overkill, but try to protect all my stuff. But this is one of the reasons why I love ArSmoothFlite, because they make all this into the gyro pretty seamless with your main and secondary receivers, and then I run a backup off the main. But it's pretty simple. If you can pan you over here so you can also see some control surfaces back there, right? So if we go ahead and we unplug the signal from one, we'll get a telemetry alarm on the radio. There's that. We still have control, so we plug that one back in. We get our signal back. And then over here, we unplug that one. There's telemetry alarm. We still have signal. So, it's redundancy in batteries, redundancy in receivers, and if I lose both of those, or 2-4 locks out, I still have this as a backup. So a couple different fail safes in the planes to keep them safe. You can also disable 2.4 on both of those and switch to the 900. The only bad part would be if you lose both of these receivers, like they both conk out completely. The 900 feeds the first one, so that would be like some catastrophic short. But ultimately that's made for a backup if 2.4 switches out because of dirty air. But haven't had any issues with that. Love the gyro, love the setup. This thing's been pretty flawless for me. Now that that's all checked out good, let's go ahead and get these mounted. We're going to mount them both in here with antennas going different directions. So that way I can run a set at 90 degrees, one towards the back and up, and then one towards the front, forward, and then like the other one down. So we should have pretty good antenna coverage, and then my 900 megahertz antennas will be the same underneath. Star Bond, we use it in all of our builds. I love this stuff. Hit it with a little CA, put a little thick, and just glue that bad boy right down. So the Star Bond we use, here's thick. They give you a lot of pipettes. The thin, and I also love the little toppers they put in there. So it kind of fills the hole, blocks it off. See that little needle in there? You can use it to clean it or seal it. All right, so there you go. Star Bond did its job. Now let's go ahead and make a couple little grooves so we can hide these things. So you can really do this anytime you want. Here is the part number I'm using for the white light for the back of this thing. It's a pure 040WE, and this is a uni light. We use uni lights and the stuff. So we're gonna open up this hole. We're gonna fish that thing through. We're gonna go down into the tunnel and up to our lighting control module, which is in the belly. So let's do it. Now I'm going to open up the tail of mine a little bit. I like this. This is a Lexan body reamer for making body holes. Works really well instead of drill bits, but for stuff like this, it's great. So we're just going to keep reaming the tail of this thing. He said ream the tail. So until we can get our plug to fit in, because that's realistically just about the same diameter there. So we're going to get that fished in the light and then put the cap on it. Now, if you don't have one of these, go buy yourself a foam model from Motion RC and they're free. But anyway, these things are invaluable. Let's fish that wire out of the tail. All right, to get the tail light set into place, all we're going to do is apply some canopy glue. This stuff works great. I'm going to smear that around. Now we're going to go ahead and push that thing into place. Anything that's extra, I just use on the edge. There. And now we have our cap. And then the cap, we're just going to glue right over the end of the housing. Now I have my cap. And we're just going to push that right over the end of that housing, and now that'll all dry nice and clear. For the top, we're going to do the same thing. We're using a pure 040. This is a red light, so uni lights, again, 4 watts. So this is going to go up top. We're going to fish it in, feed it the same way. All right, glue's all dried up. Got the light in the back done and the one up top, so we'll turn those on shortly. They're all wired in. And now we're going to move off to the cockpit. Screw in the doodad. All right, down underneath you could see this is the ignition pickup cable, polarized connector we were talking about. Very specific, can't miss it. You're going to have a 2-wire, the black and red, which went to the ignition BEC that we showed you, the Gator ignition BEC. Then we have our TAC. Now you can't just plug this right into the receiver. It's got to go into a telemetry module. So the telemetry module that I'm going to use for this engine comes from rclightsystems.com. I use them for ESCs, RPMs, they have Vario sensors, all kinds of stuff like that. And of course, they do lights. So if you want to, go over and check them out. But I had to program this for a 3-cylinder 4-stroke, which I did use on my PC and their software, their bootloader software. It's marked ignition, and then this goes to the receiver. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and plug this in here. We're going to put a lock connector over it, and I'm going to mount this on the inside, and then we're going to chase the wiring. So I need to make myself an extension that goes over to right here, and this is our telemetry expander. So both of the, because I had to use 2 MT300 temp sensors, they go into the telemetry expander, and then I'm going to plug that thing in here as well. So this will all feed the telemetry over. But anyway, getting pretty close here to putting a wrap on this, so let's get that finished up. All right, so we have the bottom done. We have that plate covering the ignition, our vent for our tank, connections for our wings, 900 megahertz backup That's their expander, lighting control module, ignition BEC from Gator, and it's pretty much well it. We tidied some of our wires up down into the insides. They're kind of there and out of the way. And as far as the front, there you guys can see that all the ignition wires tidied up, sensors are dry. This is going to be our vent out. And let me spin this over. It's tight in there, but ultimately everything is hooked up and I like the way it looks. So that is a wrap, and it's time to get this thing buttoned up. But yeah, so let's get out of here. Well, everybody, there you have it. That's a wrap of another project. So some of the things that I could tell you about this project, really the oversized cowl was the biggest issue for me. I wasn't really sure if that thing was going to be to my liking, but after you put the Sato 3-cylinder 90 in that thing, it really pulls your attention there, not the cowl. So the cowl's not a big deal. Plus, if you want a regular size cowl, you can reach out to Gator. You can actually order one with a normal size cowl if you want to do just a regular single cylinder 2-stroke. So some of the other things, gear doors are challenging. Some of the upgrades to those during the build I showed you guys, you know, you shouldn't have to do, but it's not a big deal to do. Those are the things we put a little bit of extra time and effort into so we don't have problems throughout the year or, you know, while we're at the field. Definitely the lights, I like upgrading to the uni lights. They look much better than what comes with it. But ultimately, it's a really, really well-built plane, and they did a phenomenal job covering this thing. So I'm super excited to get it into the air. The weathering, well, underneath it's a radial, so it's going to get natural weathering. On the top, panel lines, rivets. I think on this one, unlike my Zero, which you could check out over on my YouTube page, where we did all the weathering and we spent all those hours to do it before we flew it, I think I'm going to do this one after. And we'll just see how it grows on me and how much I like the way it flies and everything else. So we'll cover a lot of that when we do the maiden flight of this plane. But otherwise, I think this is a more advanced skill level plane to put together if you've really not dealt with a lot of figuring things out, or ARFs, maybe not the greatest choice. But if you're into something a little bit challenging, and you will love the way a Corsair looks, who doesn't? The Whistling Death is definitely the way to go. So with that being said, I'm super happy that I did this project. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, that's a wrap of all the assembly. We're maiden ready at this point. So I'm Brendan. This is Just Plain Crazy. You're just plain crazy for always hanging out and watching. Do me a favor, shameless plug, to like, share, subscribe. If you're going to hit this bad boy, make sure you definitely give me 2 of those. I deserve it. So with that being said, don't forget to check out the official channels on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. I absolutely love you guys hopping on there, leaving comments, and sharing all the little video clips and stuff like that. It's really cool. We share a lot of different things on different media, so you'll get to see a lot of little tidbits here and there all over the place. But with that being said, don't forget to check out Gator-Rc at www.gator-rc.com for this cool plane or many others. Links down in the descriptions below for all this stuff. Your one-stop hobby shop, top RC model, Maxford USA, obviously Seagull's model, Sebart, covered, uncovered, ARF, you name it, they got all kinds of stuff there, composite, balsa, the whole 9 yards. So a really, really great selection of stuff. My want list is a million miles long. So with that being said, I think we're done, wrapped, maiden time. I wish you guys happy flights. Peace out.